I think this report is an important contribution to what we've seen over the last year. We know that the fast food industry pays low wages, but what this report clarifies is that whether or not you work in the fast food industry, whether or not you eat fast food, the low-wage business model in the fast food industry is costing you money. The low-wage business model, which forces workers in the industry to rely on public assistance in order to afford food or health care or housing or other basic necessities, is draining the economy of resources. And so this is an industry that's really a race to the bottom, and it's not just spelling economic hardship for workers in the industry. It's spelling weak economic growth and really dragging down the economy across the board.
Jack, I wanted to ask you about some of the arguments that are used in terms of defending this practice. One is that many of these restaurants, especially McDonald's and Burger King's, are franchises where basically every restaurant is a small business in effect, and that these jobs are entry-level jobs that naturally would pay low wages because the people would move on to other jobs.
Mm-hmm. Well, the facts refute both of those arguments, actually, so let's just take them both in turn. For all the talk about small businesses in this industry, as you mentioned in the opening, McDonald's made $5.5 billion last year. This is an industry that's making hundreds of billions of dollars every year. And the corporate level really does exercise a lot of control over franchisees. The food tastes the same in any McDonald's you walk into. The napkins look the same. Whenever there's a new menu item, all the franchisees have to comply. They have to buy new equipment when what's needed. It's not really fair for the company to say that they can dictate the terms of basically every facet of the arrangement between the corporation and the franchisee, but all of a sudden they have no control over wages. They determine the costs, they determine the requirements that franchisees have to comply by, and in effect they absolutely control the wages. And so the corporations are really on the hook for wages in this industry. And the only thing more outrageous than that is the fact that they have substantial profits at the same time. And regarding the question about entry-level workers, the data really show that this is an industry that is significantly older and more experienced than maybe what popular impression might suggest. So 70% of all fast food workers are adults over the age of 20. And 30%, nearly a third of those workers, are actually supporting children at home. And so these low wages are being used to support adults that are trying to make ends meet, support families that are trying to make ends meet, and that's why you see the public cost of this industry so high. These wages just aren't cutting it for workers, and they're requiring public assistance in order to make ends meet.
How much do these franchises make annually? How much do the CEOs make? How much do the workers make? And talk about justifying the disparity.
Yeah, so that's a perfect contrast for you. So at the 7 largest publicly traded fast food companies in the U.S., the CEOs at those companies made a combined total of $53 million in annual compensation last year. At McDonald's, just for example, the CEO, John Thompson, made $13.7 million alone last year. Meanwhile, the median hourly wage for a fast food worker is $8.69 an hour. It's one of the lowest wages in the economy today for the occupation. So you see the stunning disparity between what the workers are making in this industry and what the CEOs are making.
The demographic of the workers?
Yeah, I mean, these are workers, as I mentioned, they're significantly older than we expect. The median age of a fast food worker is nearly 29 years old. Many are supporting children. So, this is a workforce that actually isn't all that different than what we're seeing across the economy now. Low-wage jobs have made up the majority of job growth throughout the post-recession recovery. And we've seen over the last several decades a real shift in the economy away from the manufacturing jobs, the industrial jobs that once supported the middle class throughout the beginning of the middle of the 20th century, to a service economy in retail and restaurants. These are the industries that are beginning to define the core of the American economy today, and that's a problem because these are the industries that are driving low wages for a lot of Americans.
Not only are they defining the core of the economy, the bulk of the jobs created since the Great Recession of 2008 have been in these kinds of low-wage jobs. Could you talk about what that means for the future of our economy?
Yeah, I think it means two things. At the first point, it means, at the very least, more Americans are going to be finding themselves stuck in low-wage jobs. The more low-wage jobs dominate the economy, the more Americans are going to find themselves relying on low-wage jobs to make ends meet. And the data bear that out. So the Bureau of Labor Statistics does projections for job growth over the next decade and finds that 6 of the 10 largest growth occupations over the next decade are going to be low-wage occupations. And so this is an economic trend that's been going on for the last 3 decades and is projected to continue. We know that if we don't take active steps to raise wages, the economy is not going to be doing it on its own. I think the other, obviously, the real cost of this is even if you're not someone that ends up relying on low-wage jobs, as we show in this report, the low-wage economy, low-wage industry is costing all of us, though. The more workers have to rely on public assistance in order to make ends meet, that's more money drained out of the economy and going to support massively profitable industries and companies.
In August, New York City Council member Letitia James expressed support for striking fast food workers and talked about the feminization of poverty.
Most of the individuals who work in fast food restaurants, which is one of the fastest growing industries in the city of New York, it's a race to the bottom. A significant number of them in retail and in fast food restaurants are women of color who look like me. And so there is a feminization of poverty. It's a term which describes most women who live below the poverty level who are struggling to make ends meet.
That's New York City Council member Letitia James, who's running for public advocate here in New York. If Jack Temple, the issue of this particularly affecting women, that welfare is a women's issue, and what you think the public should do about this?
Well, I think we hear that argument a lot. When we're talking about public assistance generally or talking about the American safety net. I think, what the trends show at least is that what we might have been able to argue affects only a small amount of the population is beginning to affect workers across the board, across the economy. It's going to be the case where we're not able to talk about specific demographics or specific qualities. Low-wage job growth is going to begin to affect all of us the more the current trends continue. And so I think, as you mentioned in the beginning of the segment, a lot of opponents or a lot of the company spokespersons will argue that these low-wage jobs are exclusively teens or exclusively workers that are starting out or entry-level workers, and that provides a springboard for more opportunity. But the fact of the matter is these low-wage jobs are beginning to affect all Americans across the board. If they're not relying on low-wage jobs already, then their tax dollars are supporting low-wage companies. And so it's beginning to be a core, an aspect of the core of the American economy.